think of that MFer Donald Trump tweeting that you're a boring actor who does too many TV commercials?
Oh my God, did he tweet that?
Yeah, he did.
What was your reaction to that?
I look at my bank account, I laugh.
Speaking of which, the
You know, I've always believed that the best ideas come from just talking it out. It's all about finding that spark, you know?
Bouncing off polished floors and glossy cameras, washing every color into something brighter, sharper, more dramatic than reality ever intended. The audience buzzed with anticipation, a low electric hum that seemed to vibrate through the walls. Backstage, Donald Trump paced. His reflection stared back at him from a tall mirror framed with warm bulbs. The familiar red tie hung straight down his suit, the navy jacket pressed perfectly. Everything about him was controlled, deliberate. He tugged once at the cuffs, then lifted his chin slightly, inspecting the hair that had become almost as famous as the man himself. Perfect. A stage manager hurried past with a headset. 2 minutes, Mr. Trump. Trump gave a short nod. Make sure the cameras get my good angle. The stage manager forced a polite smile and disappeared on the other side of the curtain. The host was warming up the crowd, cracking quick jokes to get the laughter flowing. The audience clapped along, phones already raised in anticipation. Tonight's show had been hyped all week. A special guest appearance. The advertisements had promised. Trump knew exactly why people were watching. Across the hall, in another dressing room, Samuel L. Jackson leaned comfortably in a chair, legs crossed, sipping from a paper cup of coffee. Unlike Trump, he looked completely relaxed. He had the air of someone who had walked into hundreds of rooms like this and owned every single one. A producer stood near the door nervously. Mr. Jackson, the host wants you to come out midway through the interview. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Midway, huh? That's right. A slow grin spread across his face. Oh, this is going to be fun. Back on stage, the show had begun. The host sat behind his desk as the band finished their theme music. The applause swelled as Trump stepped out from behind the curtain. The crowd reaction was immediate and mixed. Cheers, laughter, a few scattered boos. But Trump absorbed it like oxygen. He waved confidently, pointing at people in the audience as if greeting old friends. That he settled into the chair across from the host. Well, the host said with a grin, this is already one of the loudest reactions we've had this season. Trump leaned back, smiling broadly. They love me. You see that? They love me. The crowd laughed. The interview started easily enough. The host asked about politics, about the media, about Trump's latest statements that had been dominating headlines all week. Trump answered with the same confident rhythm he had used for years. The country's watching what's happening, he said. And frankly, they want strength. That's what they want. Strength. The audience murmured. The host nodded thoughtfully. You're definitely not shy about saying what you think. I say what everybody's thinking, Trump replied quickly. I just say it louder. Laughter rippled through the room. But the host glanced at his cue card, and a mischievous smile crept across his face. Well, he said slowly. Tonight we actually invited someone who had a few thoughts of his own. Trump tilted his head. Oh, really? The band suddenly struck a dramatic chord. The curtain behind them swung open, and out walked Samuel L. Jackson. The crowd erupted. Jackson stepped onto the stage with calm confidence. Waving once before strolling toward the chairs, Trump's smile froze for half a second. Jackson stopped beside the desk, looking down at him with an expression that was half amusement, half disbelief. Well, Jackson said. The audience leaned forward instantly. Jackson sat down in the empty chair beside Trump. The host leaned back, grinning. Samuel L. Jackson, everyone. More applause. Jackson glanced sideways at Trump. So this is the guy everybody's been talking about. Trump let out a small laugh. Everybody talks about me.
This is a tremendous victory for our country. Together we will marry ever before.
That's part of the problem. The audience exploded with laughter. Trump raised an eyebrow. Problem? I don't see a problem. Jackson leaned forward slightly. That's the thing, he replied. You never do. The host clapped his hands together softly. Oh wow, he said. This is already getting interesting. Trump straightened in his chair. You know, Samuel, I've seen your movies. Great movies. Big fan. Jackson nodded slowly. Appreciate it. But, Trump continued, movies are different from the real world. Jackson stared at him for a moment. Then he chuckled. Man, he said, shaking his head. You really walked into that one. The audience burst into laughter again. Trump frowned slightly. What's that supposed to mean? Jackson leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. It means, he said, I've played fictional villains who were more self-aware than you. The crowd roared. Trump shifted in his seat. Oh, come on, he said. You're just trying to get applause. Jackson raised his eyebrows. Trust me, he said calmly. I don't need help getting applause. The audience clapped again. The host was practically glowing with excitement. This might be my favorite interview ever. Trump turned toward Jackson. His smile tightened.
It will tremendous.
You think you're funny.
Thank you.
Jackson shrugged. I think you're predictable. Another wave of laughter rolled through the room. Trump leaned forward now. Let me tell you something, he said. People in this country respect success. Jackson nodded. That's true. And I've had tremendous success. Jackson tapped the desk lightly. You've had attention, he corrected. The difference hung in the air. The audience gasped slightly. Trump opened his mouth to respond. And that was when it happened that a sudden burst of air swept across the stage point. One of the overhead cooling vents had
My fellow Americans, this is a breaking news update. We are taking swift and decisive action. Together, we will make America great again.
Oh, what a cute little kitten.
It hovered like a golden cloud.
Such soft fur.
It slid sideways. The studio fell silent. The Trump's wig lifted clean off his head and drifted through the air like a strange, slow-motion bird. The audience collectively inhaled. Jackson watched it sail past with perfect calm. The wig landed on the host's desk, and the room exploded with laughter. Jackson leaned forward, staring at Trump's suddenly exposed scalp. He blinked once, then twice. Well, he said slowly, that explains a lot. The audience lost their minds that Trump's face turned a shade of red that nearly matched his tie. The laughter wouldn't stop. That IT rolled through the studio like thunder, echoing off the walls as people clutched their stomachs and wiped tears from their eyes. Even members of the band were doubled over, their instruments hanging uselessly at their sides. On the desk, the wig sat motionless, perfectly still, like it had always belonged there. Trump froze in his chair. For a moment, he didn't move at all, as if the entire scene might somehow rewind itself if he simply stayed still long enough. That IT didn't. Samuel L. Jackson slowly leaned toward the desk, studying the wig with the seriousness of a museum curator examining a rare artifact. Well, he said, thoughtfully, that thing has been through some battles. The audience exploded again. Trump reached forward quickly and snatched the wig from the desk, placing it back on his head with sharp, irritated movements. There's a lot of wind in here, he muttered. Jackson tilted his head. Wind? Yes, Trump insisted. Bad ventilation. Jackson gave a slow nod. Sure, he said. Let's blame the wind. The host had completely lost control of the show. He tried to speak, but kept dissolving into laughter. This was not planned, he gasped. Trump straightened his jacket, attempting to reclaim his composure. You know what, he said, forcing a smile. People love authenticity. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Oh, that's what we just saw? The audience laughed again. Trump leaned back, his confidence clearly shaken but not entirely gone. You know, Samuel, he said, you're making jokes, but millions of people respect me. Jackson nodded slowly. Millions of people also watch reality TV, he replied. That doesn't make it real. Another wave of laughter crashed over the room. Trump rubbed his hands together. You actors think you know politics. Jackson leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp. No, he said. I think I know arrogance when I see it. The room quieted slightly. Jackson continued. You walk around like the world's a stage built just for you. But the rest of us are living in the real script. Trump's smile faded. You're just trying to lecture me. Jackson shrugged. I'm just talking. The host wiped his eyes. Gentlemen, he said, trying to regain control. This might be the most unforgettable moment we've ever had on this show. Jackson glanced toward the audience. They're definitely gonna remember the flying hair. The crowd roared again. Trump sighed, clearly realizing the moment had slipped beyond his control. That he pointed toward Jackson. You came here to embarrass me. Jackson shook his head slowly. Man, he said, you did that part all by yourself. The audience burst into applause. Trump stared out at the sea of faces, laughing, cheering, filming the moment on their phones. For the first time that night, he didn't have a comeback. The host finally stood up, still grinning. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, Samuel L. Jackson and Donald Trump. The band launched into the closing music. Jackson stood and waved to the crowd, completely at ease. Trump stood as well, adjusting his jacket one last time. The cameras kept rolling, and somewhere backstage, producers were already whispering the same thought. This clip was going to break the internet.